Hello and welcome. Let's keep our discussion going on the beautiful series of concepts through PYQs. Here we have reached on the chapter fiscal policy. Let's start the discussion. We'll be taking a question from the year 2021. The question is, which among the following steps is most likely to be taken at the time of an economic recession? So first we have to tell which steps will be taken during times of economic recession. First of all, we need to know what recession is. Look, recession is when GDP falls, or it's better I discuss it somewhere else. Recession is when GDP falls for 2 consecutive quarters. Alright, decrease in GDP for consecutive quarters. That is called recession. And we have a similar term which is called depression. Look, for depression, we do not have a technical term. Alright. When recession, it becomes severe, it continues for a longer period of time. That time recession gets converted into depression. Depression doesn't have a technical definition as recession has, which is decrease in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters. We have one more term which is slowdown. Slowdown is when the GDP increases at a decreasing rate. Alright? GDP is increasing at a decreasing rate. Difference between recession and slowdown is, in the recession the GDP falls. In slowdown the GDP goes up. Here just the rate is going down. Alright? So basically recession is the downward phase of economy. So question is, which among the following would be done during period of economic recession? To answer this question, we need to know what exactly should be done during recession. Alright, and this theory, look, economy goes from growth to boom, from boom to recession, recession to recovery, and then back to growth. This is a normal business cycle. Economy can go from growth to recession to recovery, back to growth, growth, slow down, again growth. All of them are business cycles. Alright, I am not discussing in detail over here because you would have done all these things in your foundation program. But economy goes from growth to boom, boom to recession because of market forces, because of supply and demand. But if economy has to go from recession to recovery, slow down to back to growth, what we need is, we need government intervention. Here we would require government intervention. This theory was given by John Keynes. Alright. Or in other words, when we say government intervention, that time there should be following of expansionary monetary and expansionary fiscal policy. And that brings us to the main concept brought in this question, which is about the types of fiscal policy and types of monetary policy. Fiscal policy, it is of 2 types: expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. Expansionary, as the name suggests, here we will be expanding the economy. So here the liquidity would be increasing. And why do we follow expansionary fiscal policy? We do it to bring economic growth. What do we do in expansionary fiscal policy? We reduce the tax rates and government increases its expenditure. So what's the advantage of expansionary fiscal policy? The advantage is it increases the economic growth, it takes the economy out of recession, it takes the economy from the downward phase. But at the same time, it has its drawback that because of extra spending, because of decreased revenue, government's fiscal deficit would be increasing, government's borrowing would be increasing, and inflation would also be increasing in long run because of more liquidity in the economy. Contractionary fiscal policy is opposite of it, where here we will be contracting everything, the liquidity would go down, and when the liquidity would go down, the inflation would go down, and that is what is the objective of contractionary fiscal policy, that we have to bring down inflation. And how do we do it? We increase the tax rates and we reduce the expenditure. The government does it, all right. And the negative is, obviously, if liquidity goes down, the negative is that the economic growth would also go down. Fair enough? Then, just we have two types of fiscal policy, we have two types of monetary policy, which are expansionary and contractionary. Expansionary monetary policy is also called as cheap money policy or cheap money policy or easy money policy. All right. What happens over here? Same as an expansionary fiscal policy. As an expansionary fiscal policy, liquidity goes up. Here also the liquidity would go up. But how would the liquidity go up? The RBI would be reducing the interest rates, whichever interest rate it is. Repo rate, reverse repo rate, SLR, CRR, any interest rate would be reduced. The banks would also be reducing their lending rate and deposit rates. Interest rates would be reduced. Objective is we have to bring economic growth, and that is what is the positive of following an expansionary monetary policy. And the drawback is because of high liquidity, the inflation is going to go up. And if we see contractionary monetary policy, it is also called as tight money policy or dear money policy. As the name suggests, here the liquidity would go down. How do we reduce the liquidity? We increase the interest rates. Why do we follow it? To reduce inflation. And the negative is, obviously, if liquidity goes down, the economic growth would also go down. With these concepts in your mind, now you can easily answer the question. So if we have to get out of recession, basically we need to follow either a expansionary fiscal policy or a expansionary monetary policy. Cut in tax rates. Yes, tax rates should be reduced. Accompanied by increase in interest rates? No, because increase in interest rates will be reducing the liquidity. We have to increase liquidity if we have to get out of recession. This is a wrong statement. Increase in expenditure. Yes, expenditure should be increased on public projects. Yes, this should be done. We can look onto it. Increase in tax rates? No. Increase in tax rates would be contractionary fiscal policy. It will be bringing down liquidity. We cannot do it. This statement is wrong. Reduction of expenditure on public projects? No. Government expenditure should increase. This statement is also wrong. Option is B. Alright. I hope you have understood multiple concepts through this video, where we discussed about types of monetary and fiscal policy. We discussed about the difference between recession, slowdown and depression. Keep watching for more such type of informative videos. That's it for today. Bye bye. Take care.